Hello and welcome to Wrestling at Random. I'm Jeremy Deemer.
And I am Adam Summers.
And this is the podcast where every week we take a bunch of pro wrestling weekly TV shows from all over the internet. We dump them into what we call the randomizer. We fire it up and it'll pick a show for us to review completely at random.
Yes, and when you say the randomizer and you say dumping shows in, we're not lying. Thousands upon thousands upon thousands of hours of pro wrestling television here in season 2, from official streaming services, from other streaming platforms. They all get thrown in there. We watch whatever the randomizer picks. And this week, if you can go off the board while also picking the most recognizable professional wrestling company in the world, that's what the randomizer did this week.
WWF Shotgun Saturday Night, February 1st, 1997. Now, if you don't remember what Shotgun Saturday Night was...
You're lucky.
In 1997, the WWF started the show, Shotgun Saturday Night, as a live show that debuted January 4th, 1997. So 1 month prior to the show we're about to review today. The show was meant to be more risque than other WWF programming, but it won't attempt to do anything at the level of ECW that they were doing at the time, such as the insane stuff in the crowds or the blood everywhere. It wasn't going to get that crazy, but
yeah, it felt like they were trying to do the setting of ECW and try to capture some of what was already bubbling under as ECW was about to go on pay-per-view, as something that people are excited about. But yeah, we'll get into it later. It was only surface deep at best, the resemblance.
Yeah, Dave Meltzer, the Wrestling Observer newsletter's review of the debut show says, quote, "It looked like a public access wrestling TV show, which I don't think is the intention."
That's a very good way of putting it. Also, and I'm sure you'll get into this when you describe the history of this. Where did this air? Because my recollection of it is murky. I definitely remember the show, but the version that we were watching, it just had like a local Fox affiliate graphic on the bottom right corner of the screen. So was this live but syndicated? What was the deal here?
Yeah, it was live, but in certain markets at its launch. It would eventually find a home on the USA Network, but it was originally syndicated it was about 30 markets at its launch.
Okay, and was it live on all
Yes.
those, or did some places show it at a different random time? Okay.
Some people would show it, so it was live in most markets, New York for sure, but some markets gave it a later, less ideal midnight time slot.
Wow, so this was basically like Ring of Honor on Sinclair TV here for WWE or WWF as far as the placement.
That's a good comparison.
Production values wise too.
Yeah, so Shotgun Saturday Night, its gimmick was that they would do it from unique, random locations that were not a normal arena or building that you would see wrestling in. So,
but in New York City, right? At least at the beginning, that's
correct.
What the deal was.
Yeah, so the debut episode is in the same place as the episode we're going to review tonight. It's in a nightclub. In
the Mirage.
The Mirage nightclub. The episode after this is actually at Penn Station, the big train station in New York City, and underneath Madison Square Garden. And so these unique venues, this nightclub, for instance, because of the size constraints of the nightclub, Shotgun Saturday Night actually had to use a somewhat smaller ring than the standard 20 by 20. You could definitely tell it was smaller than usual.
I was going to reference that as we got into the show, that this looked like they borrowed a WCW ring.
The club, Mirage, that they were at, drew 300 people at $20 per person. And because the gate would be so low at some of these shows, including the Penn Station show, which was just free, the talent level after the first show steadily dropped and continued to drop as they just couldn't pay the top performers. It wasn't worth having them on the show when they couldn't cover that cost. This was WWF in 1997, so money was something they paid attention to.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is the time period where they were losing handily to Nitro pretty much every week. This is also the time period where they were so hard up for money that they were even farming out their own wrestlers to wrestle on other companies' shows in Japan, whether it be Undertaker wrestling Jinsei Shinzaki and Michinoku Pro, other guys appearing in FMW. We've talked about that before. So this is in that same time period, which I guess it all begs the question, why did they do this? I can't imagine they were getting a lot of money for this show. They weren't making money at the gate, and it wasn't really advancing anything. So it's just this one of those like...
Well, remember, Nitro had a live TV show, so WWF wanted to have a live weekly TV show as well, and this was before Raw started going live weekly. Once they decided that Raw would start to go live weekly, the decision was made to start taping Shotgun Saturday Night in advance. So they would tape the show before big shows in an arena, no longer filming at the different unique locations. And it would eventually morph into more of a Raw recap show, similar to what you would see on a future, Sunday Night Heat type of show.
What a bizarre just thought process that led to this. To me, it just feels like one of those things that Vince got an idea. No one could tell him no. It had to run its course to basically be exactly the failure that it could only be. And then they moved on.
Yeah, once they started filming in the arenas, it started becoming a Raw recap show. In August 21st, 1999, the show, the taped show, which had become the Raw recap show, was basically renamed WWF Jacked. So Shotgun Saturday Night became Jacked, which would eventually become Metal.
Well, it would eventually become Metal, but I believe Jacked and Metal existed side by side.
They did.
They were basically the exact same show.
Correct.
But some markets had it syndicated as Jacked. Some had it as Metal. Some, which I believe Chicago was one of these, had both. And it was very confusing when it first started because I remember like, oh, more wrestling. I'll watch this. And then you watch Jacked and you see, okay, this is mostly a recap show. And then you watch Metal and it's the exact same show, just with different graphics and wraparounds. Very weird.
So this show, this Shotgun Saturday Night, is taking place at the Mirage nightclub in New York, the same site as the debut episode. Todd Pettengill is in the alley outside the Mirage nightclub.
Yes, in the back alley wearing a leather coat and a trench coat, trying to look and sound rough and tough and hard. And this is your first clue that of any wrestling company, maybe in the history of mankind, this company, the WWF, was the least suited to try to present this type of product, this type of show. He's in the alley. We see Vader in the background looking through dumpsters. Paul Bearer is freaking out. And man, what a look seeing Paul Bearer as Paul Bearer and Vader in his Vader wrestling gear outside on the street. Just looks strange. And what are they doing? They're looking for Mankind. And I'm having flashbacks to 1993, wondering if this is Lost in Cleveland with Vader and Cactus Jack. I'm half looking for Harley Race and the Bag and Yoshi Kwan, but that's not what we see here.
I felt like this was kind of a dig at that when Paul Bearer says that Mankind is missing, which was Cactus Jack was missing, and so he's been missing though for only 2 hours, and we see Mankind cross the street towards the building, almost hit by a car. Makes it to the building. He tells Paul Bearer that last time he was here, there were dancing women, loud music. I love this place, and they love me. Have a nice day.
Yeah, I mean, he's great regardless of the material. That will be a theme for this show. This is where I just remember how terribly bungled Vader was in the WWF. Like, you have that guy, and then what you're doing with him is playing it for comedy. Okay, let's see how the rest of this program goes.
We get the open where we see different wrestlers out and about in New York, which is always funny when...
Yeah, Undertaker in full gear, like emerging from the subway.
And then Vince McMahon and Sonny are your announce team, and they run down the card that we will see tonight. And...
Which is...
Oh, okay.
Here we go. Let's just run it down. It's Ahmed Johnson versus... the man they call Vader, if you forgot that Vince McMahon would say that 40 times a show. Then we have the British Bulldog versus Mankind, and the Godwins, Henry and Phineas, versus the Headbangers.
So Vader comes out with Paul Bearer and Mankind. His opponent, you mentioned, Ahmed Johnson. Mankind comes over to the commentary table where Vince says, have a seat and join us. And Sonny says, oh my God, no. And she runs away to the other side of Vince.
I thought, and we'll get into it throughout the course of this podcast, I thought Sonny was great on this show. I thought that she was one of the high points. And to me, it was one of those where it's like, I really wonder if she was not who she is in terms of just the way her life turned out. There were a lot more things they could have done with her than what they did.
We see a clip from Raw where Mankind accidentally hit Vader with a chair.
Well, describe this, because I'll have a this will be a callback to something we just talked about on a recent show.
Well, as Vader is holding his opponent, then they move. Mankind hits Vader with the chair, and it was inadvertent, but still Vader got hit with the chair.
Well, it was inadvertent, but it was like there was a split second where Mankind like realized, oh, I'm about to hit Vader, stopped, and then continued hitting him. And it just made me think of on a recent show where I talked about one of the things I love about wrestling physics, where if you start doing a move, you can't stop yourself. It felt like this was actually played for the did he or didn't he actually try to hit him part of the story that was going on. So I enjoyed that greatly.
And Vince brings it up on commentary later with Mankind. We'll get to that. Yeah.
And boy, does wrestling look better from Madison Square Garden on Monday Night Raw than it does here in this nightclub.
So we see Vader grabs a chair because Ahmed Johnson brought a board out with him, a 2x4 called the Equalizer.
Yes, Hacksaw Jim Duggan / I felt like we were about to have an early appearance of the Union. Do you remember that faction during Gang Wars?
On the graphic underneath Ahmed Johnson's name, it says, quote, scares Mike Tyson. And then Vader's name, it says, can't wait for the OJ verdict. Okay.
Yeah, that'll be a theme throughout the show. Weird sort of captions under the graphic for the name of the guy. This show, this was like Vince McMahon's idea of cool, which, God, you can just imagine. There are a few funny things here. Again, Mankind, as I mentioned at the beginning, the material isn't the best, but he's just an all-timer here on commentary. After he makes his way to the broadcast booth and half runs Sonny off, he puts the headset on and he says, I like how this headphone feels against my missing ear. And then he has a line just moments later after Vince says, again, the man they call Vader. Mankind says, he's the man you call Vader. He's the man I call friend.
So Vader starts the match with a thumb to the eye and then beats him in the corner. Mankind says, mistakes happen.
Yes, I was amused by that. Again, I also thought, wow, this company doesn't get Vader. You have him opening the match with a thumb to the eye?
Mankind's cheering with every shot. He's going, yeah. 2 clotheslines. Ahmed doesn't go down, but a right hand, and Johnson drops like a ton of bricks.
Yeah, it was really weird.
Punched again, and he's down.
He was not selling anything. Like, he was full Road Warrior Hawk after a pile driver for all of this, and then the punch, he goes down. Like, I don't even know. Like you said, the proverbial ton of bricks. Like, he got head kicked by Mirko Cro Cop.
In the corner, Ahmed reverses position and starts beating Vader down. Off the ropes, and Ahmed hits a spine buster. Vader rolls out to the floor, and Mankind hits the ring. He's yelling at Johnson.
He says he's going to keep the peace. So he comes in the ring, and he's arguing with Ahmed. And then we go to commercial, where we come back, and Vince, again, here in this dark, both like hipster, yet also seedy nightclub, ever the cool guy, Vince says, "We're having a grand old time."
After commercial, Mankind is back on commentary, and Vader is in control of the match. Vader with a huge avalanche in the corner. Vader goes to the middle turnbuckle for the Vader bomb. He debates going to the top, which results in him taking too long. Johnson knocks him off.
He kicks him directly in the rear end.
Ahmed with a reverse kick, then goes for his move, the Pearl River Plunge.
Which is actually a Tiger Driver. For those of you that are Patreon / Apple Podcast bonus content subscribers, you will know, if you've listened to our ECW Heatwave 98 show, my absolute joy and glee at seeing a real Tiger Driver here. Or seeing it teased anyway.
That's right. Mankind hits the ring with a chair, goes to hit Johnson, who moves, and Mankind is able to stop before hitting Vader, a first for wrestling physics.
Exactly.
Vader takes the chair. Mankind holds Johnson. Vader swings the chair. Johnson moves, and Vader stopped short of hitting Mankind. Johnson gets the chair, nails Vader. Mankind flees. Ahmed Johnson is your winner by disqualification.
Yeah, this is basically like the wrestling version of theoretical physics. It's throwing everything on its head. It's like Michio Kaku developed wrestling physics here and just bumped everything on its head. This was crazy. It was fun for that little moment, but this was not much of a match. This is probably as weak as you've ever seen Vader look. Mankind, by far the MVP of this, is great. After the match, he gets back on commentary and is asking if they won.
Mankind is the MVP of this entire show. Without him on this show,
no redeeming value.
Unwatchable without Mankind.
We've talked about before on previous episodes, like one guy being far and away better than everything else on the show. This might take the cake for anything we've watched this season, as far as one guy being so much better than anything else on the program. We then go from there to a promo for Tomorrow on Superstars, which apparently by this point is now on USA Network, but it's a Saturday morning show Saturday, I think maybe Sunday. I think it's Sunday morning Superstars with original matches such as Vader in action and Undertaker versus Wildman Mark Miro.
Todd Pettengill interviews the Headbangers. Thrasher is pouring hot wax from a candle on his arm, and Mosh says this club sucks, and this team sucks. This promo sucked. This was horrible.
Yeah. All I could think about this was somebody in the WWF watched the Tommy Dreamer, Beulah McGillicuddy hot wax promo from ECW Hardcore TV and came up with something that was nowhere near as compelling or interesting as that.
The British Bulldog, Davey Boy Smith, he's out there. His opponent, the MVP of this show, Mankind. But Mankind is on commentary, and he wants to stay on commentary.
How about Bulldog shaking hands with the fans? He's in the ring. The guardrails are so close, so he's shaking hands with the fans. It's like the lamest version of like 1983 in the Sportatorium with the Von Erichs or something.
The lamest version of that.
Yes.
The Bulldog,
also, what about his graphic?
His graphic says, just got his green card.
Okay.
It's a little under the usual side. Todd Pettengill with the Headbangers. Meanwhile, ladies and gentlemen, The British Bulldog on his way to the squared circle to face the man who is still seated out here with us. Mankind still on headset. You're supposed to be in the ring. You didn't even dress to wrestle.
No, Vince, I think you got the wrong information. I told you I'm here to have a good time with all these people who love me so. I'm sure we got some good quality wrestlers in the back who would love to have a shot on live television. Aldo Montoya, I think, is back there, might appreciate this shot. Davey Boy Smith is a tag team champion, a former Intercontinental champion. This is a chance of a lifetime for some young kid to go in there and make his mark.
I understand that.
It's not going to be me.
It's supposed to be. You're supposed to wrestle the British Bulldog. Perhaps
there's a couple problems with that, Vince. You see, I have to get my mind a certain way to inflict violence, and my mind is not there. I don't want to hurt you, Davey. I'm just here to talk to the people, and I think it's going to be a great match. You get a young kid like Aldo.
Wait a minute. Oh, my goodness. The British Bulldog dragging Mankind. Pulls the jacket. Look at this.
Bulldog drags Mankind off the headset, then drags him into the ring.
We should mention before we go any further the unique setup for where the broadcast table was. It was basically on a stage. I assume that there are bands that play at this nightclub, but it was basically like a cabaret style stage that's almost pushed right up against the ring like a semicircle, and that's where the broadcast table is. So that leads to some interesting moments when guys are fighting up there and then going to the ring, or here when Bulldog just drags the sweatpants wearing
he was wearing his Sunday best to go out to the club, so he didn't have
That's
his wrestling gear on. He had his sweatpants and his buttoned-up shirt over his T-shirt there.
And the buttoned-up shirt gets ripped off, and we actually see that for Mankind's Mick Foley's stat, his levels of fitness, he was actually in pretty good shape. Not quite mid-80s Jack Foley jobber level, but he was in decent shape here.
Bulldog goes to work, stomping on Mankind. Mankind, outside the ring, crawls back to the commentary booth, yelling, "I just want to talk."
He actually grabs the headset. So great. And
so great.
This is also like peak of, which he also had a couple years earlier in ECW, that maniacal, like warbling, almost falsetto that his voice would go into. Just great stuff here. Every moment he's on the screen or his voice is in our ears.
Mankind finally starts fighting back. Both men in the ring. Elbow drop by Mankind and a chin lock. Bulldog drops down and Mankind falls out of the ring and gets caught. He's caught between the ring and the stage, and his
ankle gets caught in between. It's horrible.
Yeah, he's got one leg on top of the stage. The rest of his body is sandwiched between the ring and the stage. This looked horrible.
It was as though he got there early and scouted out the setup and said, what is the most awkward, terrifying, and disturbing way I can hurt myself in this building? And then he proceeded to do just that.
So he drops to the floor, grabs Bulldog, choking him. They get back into the ring. He covers him, only a 1 count. And out of nowhere, Todd Pettengill just tries to interview Savio Vega.
This made no sense. Yeah, out of nowhere, we get an inset box, and Todd Pettengill is in the crowd. He's like, there's a bunch of wrestlers or a bunch of superstars here. Let me see if I can find anybody. And he finds Savio Vega in the crowd with a mean face. He literally has nothing else to say other than, get the hell out of my face right now. Apparently, he joined the Nation of Domination in Madison Square Garden recently.
Mankind drops a leg. We get the charging knee into the corner, into the face of Bulldog. And then then he whips Bulldog hard into the corner. He's down. Mankind drops another big leg. Vader makes his way out at this point.
How about at this point, there's a kick out and Vince says, another cookout. And then we get a hearty Vince chuckle and he says, kick out. The cookout is later. So I'm like, what? There's a cookout after Shotgun Saturday Night?
So Vader makes his way out, and Mankind's in control as we head to commercial. After commercial, Mankind teases a pile driver on the stage.
And you know where this is going. It's not going to be British Bulldog taking the bump here on the stage. It is Mankind who gets backdropped onto the stage, And it's at this point that we realize, yes, there are a lot of ECW fans here because we get a loud ECW chant.
Yeah, in the ring, Bulldog rams Mankind into the top buckle a bunch of times, then the middle buckle, and finally the bottom buckle. Mankind uses the tights to throw Davey to the floor. Vader then grabs the British Bulldog, drops him throat first across the guardrail twice. Vader rolls the Bulldog back in the ring. Mankind covers him, gets the pin.
I did not expect that.
I did not see that coming.
I feel like that spot or a variation of that spot never, ever leads to a pin. So you never buy that it's going to be the 3 count. And then here, that was just it. The best part of this match is that afterwards, Mankind's piano exit music played. I had completely forgotten that he had different entrance and exit music. And his exit music was this very serene but slightly disturbing slow piano music.
So the British Bulldog is one half of the tag team champions, so that the victory by Mankind, Vader and Mankind want a tag title shot now. Vader starts working over Bulldog in the corner, double teaming him until Ahmed Johnson and the 2x4 come out to make the save.
Yeah, Ahmed slams the 2x4 on the mat. It breaks in half. At this point, we're back out in the crowd with Todd Pettengill in his goatee. He's with Vader and Mankind. Meanwhile, he's trying to interview them. Ahmed and Bulldog are shoving each other in the ring. I guess Bulldog didn't appreciate Ahmed coming in to help. They each have a half of the 2x4, so I guess they each have a 1x2. I don't know if my math is right. Meanwhile, Paul Bearer is talking to Todd Pettengill. He says that Vader and Mankind might go after the tag titles. Mankind says they're peas in a pod. And the argument continues in the ring.
That's right. The chair incident is behind them. As the Bulldog and Johnson push and shove, we go to commercial. After commercial, Doc P.S. Hendricks runs down the house show cards.
This is amazing. Yes, this is for a show coming up. I think either the following weekend or later that same night or the same weekend. I don't know. At Continental Airlines Arena, it will host the Divided We Stand United We Brawl match as the main event, as it is Steve Austin and Shawn Michaels versus Sid Vicious and Bret Hart.
0 of those people could be bothered to be on Shotgun Saturday Night.
Well, you know who could be bothered to be on Shotgun Saturday Night? 2 men who will rematch at Continental Airlines Arena, Vader versus Ahmed Johnson, because God knows if anyone saw that match on this show, they would think, I need to go buy a ticket to the arena without Mankind on commentary to see that again.
On commentary now, we have Phineas Godwin joining the commentary team as Savio Vega from the Nation of Domination is in the ring, has a mic. It's
not working.
No, it is not. His graphic says alternate OJ juror.
So yes, they were clearly obsessed with the OJ trial here.
Yes, it's hard to hear this promo at all.
It's hard to hear it because the mic is only partially working, and also Vince McMahon just decides he's going to talk over Savio Vega cutting a promo.
Yeah, all I could get was that he cares about one thing, and that's the Nation of Domination. Double J is introduced, and Double J gets in the ring, and Double J is Jesse James, not Jeff Jarrett. The Road Dogg, Jesse James.
Yeah, I was excited for some Jeff Jarrett here in 1997. Excited to see him look like he does every single show all the time. There's 2 Jeff Jarrett looks. There's the long hair Jeff Jarrett look where he looked the same for about at least a decade. And then there's the short hair Jeff Jarrett look from about like the late 90s through current day where he doesn't look like he's aged that much. But no, instead it is the Road Dogg, Jesse James, Double J. And yes, that is a match here on this show. Savio immediately jumps him, chops him, buckles in the corner, and we're off to the races, if you could call it that. To me, the most noteworthy thing here is that you hear Phineas on commentary, and it's just like, oh, God, it's another in the long line of simpleton characters in the WWF. Again, as I mentioned, whenever either of the Godwins are on a show that we review, they were much better as Tex Slazenger and Shanghai Pierce in WCW than they were as the Godwins here in the WWF. I also had completely forgotten about the Phineas Godwin Sonny love romance storyline that's referenced a couple times here.
Yeah, it's also tough for Phineas Godwin to follow Mankind and his epic performance. Like, holy cow, you want to talk about bookends on the spectrum here. That he was put in a no-win situation here.
Not quite Jesse Barr, but not that far off.
So James is sent to the buckles, does a huge back elbow where he goes up and over the top to the floor.
It was actually, it's a spin kick. I know exactly what spot you're talking about, because that was a move that whether he was Savio Vega or before when he was Quang the Ninja, that would always be one of his big moves where he'd hit the spin kick in the corner. He'd hold onto the top rope and go over the top and land usually sitting on the apron.
Savio pulling at the face of James. James hits a cross body, but Savio stays on the attack. Vega, he puts on a wacky arm submission.
Well, and that was preceded by a terrible snapmare.
Oh, horrible. There's a couple in this match. Just a strange arm submission here. Double J starts to fight back.
Sorry, go ahead. I have a thought about a previous Savio Vega match that we've seen on this podcast, but continue.
Double J starts to fight back. Sunset flip, only gets a 2 count. Clothesline, and Savio starts going for pins, only 2 counts. He argues with the ref. Double J with the roll-up, he gets a 2 count. And I think I know where you're going with this. Savio, this is a different Savio than we saw in 1996.
Yeah, if you were wondering if this would be at or near the level of Savio Vega versus Stone Cold Steve Austin in a leather strap match from that...
Beware of Dog in Your House show from season 1.
Exactly, with that match that ended up being delayed by 2 days because of the power outage due to the severe thunderstorm. And then they put on one of the best strap matches in wrestling history. This is not the same Savio Vega here. Granted, it is a step down from Steve Austin to Double J Jesse James. But yeah, this was not particularly good. I also think that Savio Vega is a much better babyface than he is a heel. But yeah, not great. The only interesting thing that happens in this match comes next. Savio hits a nasty pile driver that should have been the finish. It only gets 2, and instead, what do we get here? A nerve hold.
That's right. A hip toss, a nerve hold. Headbutt, and Double J fights back with chops and punches. He charges in, but Savio gets his feet up. Savio's just choking Double J on the middle rope. This is so boring. And we get another chin lock here. Come on.
Oh, yeah.
So boring.
You got to do the chin lock spot so Phineas can tell his hilarious story about his grandma being drunk and getting arrested naked 3.5 miles from their farm.
Oh,
Thank God we had a break so
Vince
we could
was
have
on the edge of his seat hearing about this story. He was so into this.
Absolutely. That's Vince McMahon content right there.
After a jawbreaker breaks a hold, the Savio's still on the boring attack. He's screaming
I actually
about
wrote
the nation and at Phineas's direction. This is horrible.
At the same time that you are saying this is boring, I'm looking at my notes, and in between the jawbreaker and hearing Vince yell about Penn Station, I have written down in all caps, God, this is boring.
Good. We're on the same page here. Yeah, next week is Penn Station, like you mentioned. Savio misses a splash in the corner. Big boot by Jesse James. He goes for the 10 punch in the corner on Savio. He does Jeff Jarrett's strut.
Well, he does. It's like a mix between a Jeff Jarrett strut and a honky tonk man hip swivel, and it is neither of those. He does not reach that level.
Savio does a modified flare flop out of the corner.
Yes, I know that as well.
Double J goes for the pump handle, but Savio counters. He hits a spinning heel kick out of nowhere and gets the 3 count, which felt out of nowhere. Savio Vega is your winner. This match was boring.
It was boring, and it's a theme on this show where the matches just happen. They go on and on. They don't really kick into a higher gear, and then the finish just happens out of nowhere. And it's not even like it's an exciting flash finish. It just feels like someone's in the ref's ear saying, all right, they're at 8 minutes, tell them to go home.
Right.
And then they just do the finish. There's no build to it. There's no flow. Really, really weird.
Yes, but exactly. Every match. That's 3 matches in a row where it's that formula of do stuff and a finish. And none of it has to be cohesive or build anything or make sense.
And the words do and stuff are doing a lot of heavy lifting there, because we're not doing much and the stuff wasn't much in the way of stuff. But
no, and the crowd is dead because how could they not be for this? They weren't getting any reason. There was no reason for them to cheer, and they were not getting into it.
Well, think about it. It's Saturday night in New York City. You are at the Mirage nightclub. You are watching a wrestling show, and what is happening in front of you is a chin lock from Savio Vega onto the other Double J.
Todd Pettengill is with the Headbangers again.
Oh, God.
And then one pretended to puke on the other, but it cut out the feed. And then on the replay, they confirm, yes, he puked on him. Well, this was ridiculous.
He puked candle wax, ostensibly. They had been drinking the candle wax that they had been burning. Now, I refuse to learn which headbanger is which. I know one is Mosh, one is Thrasher. They're Headbanger A and Headbanger B, much like the Texas Hangmen.
All you have to do is remember that Mosh is Beaver Cleavage. That'll help you.
Oh, yeah. Now it's 100%
not helpful? Not, okay.
No.
Chaz, is that helpful?
Maybe slightly more. But this is probably, we've talked about it on previous WWF shows, but this is probably more than anything we've seen yet, the clearest window into what Vince McMahon finds funny.
100%. And there's not a good Venn diagram of Vince's humor and my humor at this point.
No, absolutely none for me either. This is basically the exact same thing as in Beyond the Mat, where Vince is trying to get Droz to puke. This is that, but on TV.
So the Godwins are dancing. Henry,
yeah, we have platform dancers here. It's like TNA.
Yeah, Henry's interested in some dancing woman on a platform.
And as that's happening, what does the coolest guy in the room, Vince McMahon, say again? Yes, we're having a grand old time.
The Godwins versus the Headbangers is your main event of the evening. Did you see the graphic for the Godwins, what it said? Yes, the Godwins said spokesman for Excedrin.
No, the Headbangers.
Oh, the Headbangers was spokesman for Excedrin.
Spokespersons for Excedrin. The Godwins,
it said, Bob Dole.
Voted for Bob Dole here on this show that is apparently, if we're judging by the setting, supposed to appeal to young people.
And this is February of 1997. So yeah, we're all Godwins early. Nothing much to note. They're not doing much of anything. Phineas sent into the ropes. Mosh gets the knee out, hitting him in the back, leading to a double team by the Headbangers.
My favorite thing about this match is that much like you and I, or at least much like me, even though these men are not masked, neither Vince nor Sonny can tell the Headbangers apart, and they're not making any effort to do so.
No.
At one point, Vince calls Thrasher Thrash.
Yeah, and Sonny made it a point to say, I will not invest any time to learn who is who. Yes. She was very clear about that.
I loved her on this show. Like, she had a few stumbles, but I thought for someone who you don't necessarily think of as being a color commentator, I thought she was really good here. As I mentioned earlier, one of the few high points. They come back from commercial, and the crowd is chanting ECW. There's nothing ECW like happening other than that the Headbangers kind of have a knockoff Raven look. I don't know if there's some people in the crowd who need to get new prescriptions for their glasses or contacts, and they thought we had a Raven invasion here. This was not fun.
No, Phineas is still being double teamed after the commercial. Mosh to the top hits a flying elbow for a 2 count. Macho Man Randy Savage, he is not.
No, that is a generous description of a flying body attack here from Mosh.
Thrasher holds him across the top rope as Mosh comes over the top of Thrasher, landing across the back of Phineas.
The old Rougeau brothers move. Meanwhile, Vince, channeling modern-day Jim Ross, is screaming about that this should be a disqualification. They did a double team move within the allotted 5 seconds. What about this would be a DQ?
Phineas hits a clothesline and makes the hot tag to Henry, and 0 people care about this hot tag.
Maybe the most impressive thing about this whole sequence is that Phineas Godwin, who you don't necessarily think of as being overly coordinated, was able to multitask like a champ here as he hits the clothesline prior to the hot tag. At the same time, he is pulling his pants up as they're in serious danger of falling down, which is kind of a feat in and of itself. How do overall pants fall down?
It's a preview of Naked Midian, his future gimmick.
Oh, God. Which, by the way, if you don't subscribe to our bonus audio content via patreon.com/wrestling at random or on Apple Podcasts, go there and listen to our what was it, the second
Samoa
or third?
Joe. Yeah.
Samoa Joe versus William Regal in UPW, where Naked Midian makes a surprise appearance. If you want to support the show, feel free to subscribe to the bonus content so you can hear us talk all about that.
Yes, so that is the same Phineas Godwin here. And Henry and Thrasher brawl into the crowd. We can't.
Okay, so this is really, really weird. I know we're going to talk about what happened and how this whole situation resolves itself, but think back to what we were talking about earlier about how matches just happen and then end abruptly. Think about that as you listen to what Jeremy's going to describe here.
Yeah, so Henry and Thrasher are brawling into the crowd, and they keep going deeper and deeper into the club to where we can't see what's happening. Vince says he threw him over the bar. The bell rings, and the show abruptly ends.
Yeah, it just ends. There's no more.
No thanks for watching. No see you next week. Just
no decision as to what this is. It's just they brawl into the crowd. It becomes a sea of blackness, a sea of darkness. Vince is telling us they're by the bar. He tells us they've been thrown over the bar. He then screams, "Oh no!" And then the show's over.
And that's it. And that the following week, the Penn Station show would be the final live Shotgun show. So it was live for a month and 1 episode. So that Penn State show would be the final live Shotgun Saturday night.
Thank goodness.
Holy cow, this show is terrible.
It was just a mess. And by WWF standards, when you think again about production, particularly around this time period, and we're not, into the somewhat modern recent times where things are pretty nonsensical. I mean, this is right in the midst of even when they were losing, things were at least well put together and the production values were high. This was again, going back to what we were talking about at the start of the show, this entire series, Shotgun Saturday Night, was like a solution in search of a problem. I still don't understand, other than what you said about WCW having a live show, so they felt the need to have a live show. Just make Raw live. Why was this ever the first step? They got there, but why was this the step they had to go through to get there? Again, I would love to know this. Again, this has to be a Vince idea that nobody felt comfortable saying, let's just not do this. And so it had to run its course.
Favorite thing on the show? I've got a pretty good idea what it is, but what is your favorite thing on this show?
Yeah, it's Mick Foley, Mankind, particularly him on commentary.
Yes, that is the correct answer.
only other thing I would say that was good on this show was Sunny. I've said it several times. I actively enjoyed her in color commentary. And when it first started and I saw that the broadcasting was going to be Vince McMahon and Sunny, I did not think that I would have any positive thing to say about the announcing on this program.
No, I agree 100% with the Mankind assessment. Sunny was okay. I didn't love her as much as you did, but
great. I'm not saying she was like classic Jim Cornette on color commentary or Bobby Heenan, but she wasn't. I've heard a lot of people, whether it be managers or wrestlers, we've talked about a lot of them on this podcast. I mean, she was better than Frankie Lancaster. That's for damn sure. You know, like there are a lot of people we've heard do color commentary in the many episodes of season 2 so far that were far worse than her here.
You got a lot to choose from here on this one. Worst thing on the show.
Other than the show and the concept, the idea that it existed, if we're setting that aside, to me, it's 100% clear that it is really both, but particularly the second of the Headbangers promos with Todd Pettengill.
Yes, the Headbangers promos are the worst thing on this show. They were absolutely terrible. And the every match layout of
yes
was also just horrible. Like, who puts this show together and says, go ahead and do some half-ass stuff, get through the match. Don't put in even house show level efforts.
No.
And then we'll let you know when to go to a finish. Don't worry, it can come out from anywhere. It'll be fine. Nobody cares.
No, this was, it wasn't even house show level. This was like if a wrestling company goes to like a trade show, or like I remember going to the Comic-Con and you'd have like a random indie show that would put on a couple of matches, and it was clear that this, like, no effort was being put in. That's what this was like. It was 5 to 10 minutes of middling, meandering, nothing wrestling, no high spots at all. And I'm not even talking about like guys doing 450s, just high spots, meaning nothing building to anything. We didn't see any of that at all. And then matches just ended. And then again, the cherry on top, the finish to the show with the wrestlers disappearing into the black void of the mirage, and then Vince screaming, "Oh no!" and then the feed cutting out.
Yeah, so this show's terrible. Don't watch. You can find episodes out there of Shotgun Saturday Night, but we just saved you an hour. Hopefully you had a much more enjoyable hour listening to us. And if you enjoy listening to us, then you can support the show in a couple of ways. First and foremost is through the Patreon that we mentioned, patreon.com/wrestling@random. You can get all the bonus content that we referenced as well here. We've got 20 plus bonus episodes. We put out a bonus episode once a week on that feed. Subscribe at patreon.com/wrestling@random. If you don't want to go to Patreon and submit all that information and sign up, create an account, if that feels like a hassle, if you're listening to us via Apple Podcasts, there's a button there right now that says subscribe. You can push that button and all the audio content that is marked as bonus episode is available to you to listen to right now, the same way you listen to this feed in Apple Podcasts. So those are 2 ways to get bonus content every single week, and an entire back catalog of bonus content that's new to you right now. So definitely check out those episodes. And if you want to interact with the show, we love to hear from people listening to whatever episode. This is evergreen content, so you could be listening to Capital Combat 90, Return of RoboCop from Season 1, and we want to hear your thoughts on that, on some of those segments. So go ahead, and the way to interact with the show is on Twitter via @wrestle@random. If it's the same for Instagram as well. If you don't like the social media platforms, we get that as well. You can send us an email, wrestlingatrandom@gmail.com. So those are the best ways to interact with the show. We want to hear from you. If you cannot support the show via subscribing to the bonus content, we get it in these times. Totally makes sense. You can support us by telling your wrestling fan friends about the show. Tell your friends that used to be wrestling fans about this show, and they can go through the archives and they can subscribe and get weekly episodes from us as well and take a trip down memory lane.
And make sure to tell your former friends who you know are wrestling fans about the podcast as well. Maybe it's a scenario where, like Vader and Mankind, you metaphorically, maybe accidentally on purpose, hit them with a chair. And, maybe you send them this podcast. You're in a similar scenario. And the next time you stop yourself at the last minute from metaphorically hitting them with a chair. And then the next thing you know, you're best friends again. Could happen.
All the episodes in the entire back catalog of this podcast, going all the way back to episode 1 of season 1, where we reviewed In Your House from 1995. All of those episodes are available at the website, wrestlingatrandom.com, or in your podcast feed. Just keep on scrolling. There's many, many, many hours of content here waiting for you, so go and make sure you catch up on the back catalog. And with that, we're going to wrap it up. Adam, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jeremy. I'm not going to say thank you, Randomizer, because this is one that I don't think we needed to watch. But I will say that I guess if you're a Mankind completist, seek out this show because he is great. Mick Foley is great here on commentary. You'll get a few chuckles. But beyond that, there are probably better ways you can fill your day than watching this show. Instead, just listen to all the episodes of this podcast. That'll entertain you more, I think.
It is surprising how many times Mick Foley has shown up on this podcast.
Yes.
I wish
he's everywhere.
I wish we had a count of times wrestlers showed up on this podcast, because I think in the top 5, it would definitely include Mankind. He's got to be in the top 5.
Well, in season 2 here, I think he's number 1. He has to have been in half the episodes, whether it be.
It's wild how many times he just randomly appeared. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Think back to that Continental show, the Smoky Mountain show. Hell, even in the Saturday Night Show, the WCW Saturday Night Show, while we don't see him, we hear about him because of Yoshi Kwan and the bag. His presence looms over all of season 2.
Yeah. So. With that, we're going to wrap it up. I want to thank everyone for listening, and we'll talk to you again next time.